A prospect walks into your office. You spend 45 minutes walking them through your response times, your help desk, your monitoring, your stack, your security tools. They nod the whole way and they look at you and they say, what's the perceived price? That happened on every prospect call, my first MSP. Every time, every single one. I used to tell myself that those prospects didn't understand my value. They just didn't know, Jeff. They didn't. No, but the truth was the opposite. They understood exactly what they were buying, a commodity. So they shopped it like a commodity. I'm Joe Rojas. I built and sold 3 MSPs. And the reason the first one stalled really bad wasn't pricing or hiring or sales. It was that I was running an MSP. And that was the problem.
And I'm Jeff Loehr. I can stand on my head. And today we're going to make a case that's going to sound like heresy. The smartest MSP owners in the industry have already stopped thinking of themselves, calling themselves MSP. And they didn't change the technology. They didn't fire their clients. One of our coaching clients followed the process, raised his prices, cut the effort, and rode his motorcycle around the country for a month while the business grew. And that's the move. That's the episode for today. So if you felt like you're working harder every year for the same money, this isn't a pricing problem, but it's also a definition problem. It's a business model problem. Here's the part that nobody in the industry frames this way. This is an evolution story. I like to talk about when I started in IT. I made good money configuring network cards. You had to plug them in and install the drivers. They didn't work. You redid it, get it talking to the network. And this was a real billable service. And now it's a checkbox. Not even a checkbox. Now the computer comes like pre-configured, right? And then it sort of went from in-house to break fix, hourly billing. Something breaks, you come fix it. And that was a real business too, because people really knew that they needed these services and they really had to get things fixed, and things broke all the time. But today, you're not making good money if you're break fix. The technology got more reliable, labor got cheaper, clients stopped wanting to pay. So the industry evolved again. The MSP model showed up, recurring revenue, flat fees, managed everything. And really, it's a genuine step forward. It's the right move. It built billions of dollars of value. It wasn't wrong.
And it worked. I built my first MSP on exactly that promise. And for a few years, I felt like I cracked the code. I had a real recurring revenue instead of a fast feast or famine type of break fix shop. I had real recurring, here's where that money's going.
Here's the thing. The evolution doesn't stop there. That was the right model at the time, but evolution doesn't stop. Clients take technical competence for granted. They assume the monitoring works. They're completely uninterested in evaluating all of those XM whatever DRs that you offer. It's not interesting to them at all. They assume the patches happen. They assume the help desk picks up. None of this is differentiation. This is table stakes. So as a result, everybody starts to look the same. Your margins compress. Your competition sells the same thing with the same words, and the buyer can't tell you apart. The only thing they can do, if you have two things that look exactly the same, the only thing they can do is tell you apart by the price. And that per seat conversation keeps grinding the numbers down. It's not a promotion problem. It's a product problem. Nobody wants to talk about product. Everybody says, we're a service business, not a product business. No, screw that. You're a product. This is a product problem. And it's the natural next chapter of the story that the industry has been living and growing and building for 30 years.
And every MSP owner watching has lived a version of it. In some way, shape, or form, you've lived a version of it. I'd come out of those meetings so freaking frustrated, Jeff. And I tell myself the answer was to work harder, to hire better, to pick better clients. These are the wrong clients. But everybody was the wrong clients. And work hard is what people tell themselves right before they pivot, or they get divorced, or they buy a Peloton or something. None of it fixed it because it wasn't a discipline problem. It was a model problem.
And that's the commodity trap. When the buyer can't differentiate, they go to price. And the moment you're competing on price, 3 things happen. First, your margins get crushed, which we just talked about. Second, you attract clients who only care about cost. So that means they're also going to be the first to leave when someone undercuts you. And third, you can't invest in your business. There's no margin to invest with. So you can't hire better. You can't build better systems. You can't develop a better offering.
And the problem is, just like the Chinese finger trap, it gets tighter every year because the next wave is already here. AI is starting to automate the lower tier tickets. The hyperscalers are putting more of the managed stack inside the cloud. Overseas labor is cheaper than ever. And every one of those is another squeeze on the MSP margin. They're just taking all the juice.
So if you're running an MSP right now and you feel like you've been working harder for less, it's the business model running its course. The business model that worked beautifully 10 years ago. It's the same business model that's a commodity today. The market is asking the industry to continue the evolution. There is a villain in this story, and it's the vendor ecosystem. So your RMM vendor, your PSA vendor, your security sec, your distributors, they all have a vested interest in keeping you exactly where you are. They want you on selling their products. They literally call you the channel. You are their channel to the market. I mean, just think about that. Think about what that word means. If you're a channel, you're infrastructure, you're a pipe, you're a drainage ditch. Pick whatever metaphor you find least flattering. They mean the same thing. Water moves through, value lives somewhere else. The connector gets squeezed. That's the whole point of being a channel. Channels exist to deliver somebody else's value with the lowest possible cost.
And they're not subtle about it either. If you walk into any vendor conference, the whole pitch to MSPs is stack more of our stuff on your stuff.
Sell more seats, right?
Sell more seats. Get certified. We got 5 new SKUs.
And the thing is, it's never build a business that doesn't depend on us. It's never build a business that serves your clients. And why would it be?
They don't want you to build leverage. They want you dependent. The same vendors that talk about partnership in their marketing emails are the ones that are raising your costs 15% a year because they know that switching is brutal, that you can't get out, or they got you locked into a 3-year contract and you can't get out. That's not a partner. That's a landlord.
And it just speeds up the race to the bottom. The entire ecosystem is optimized to keep you in a role where your job is to push their product. And the more efficient you are at pushing it, the less differentiated you are, the more you look like everybody else. Efficiency makes a good business better, but it also makes a commodity business cheaper.
Let me name the symptoms because if any of these sound familiar, you're in this trap. You can't raise prices without losing clients. Your prospect asks, what's your price before they ask anything else? Your best clients keep questioning invoices. Well, what's this? Why did you charge for this? You hire a salesperson and they can't articulate what makes you different from the MSP down the street. You wake up at 2 a.m., a server's down, and somewhere in there, you have a deeply unflattering thought. This is what they pay me for, to be sad in a closet. 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that one is the real tell. I mean, the rest of it you can kind of deal with, but when the answer to what do you do is we fix things when they break and we prevent them from breaking, you describe yourself as like every MSP, an IT shop, a break fix guy with a logo. Your clients can't tell you apart, and you say, but really, what I do is I cry in a closet at 2 o'clock in the morning because that's what they pay me for.
The question is whether you're going to make the shift or wait until you're being squeezed to the point where you're forced to make the shift.
So let's talk about the reframe. The shift is to move towards selling business outcomes. You use your same capabilities, but you're selling a different product. And you move from managing services to providing business solutions. You partner with your clients to improve their business by offering technical solutions. And that's why we call it a business solution partner. It's not just because it's really easy to change the M to a B and then you're good to go. It's about making sure that you're focused on getting those business solutions into the business. And the shift is exactly what it sounds like. You stop selling uptime. You start selling revenue growth, cost reduction, compliance, competitive advantage. And it's the same technology. In fact, in a lot of cases, we see people reducing the number of tools in their stack. But the question is, how you apply it, how you make it work, how you have the business improve. The technology is the means, not the end. And the relationship moves from this vendor situation to a partner.
And that's the difference. And I want to make this real because when I first heard business outcomes, it was like, are these people trying to sell me like a business webinar? It sounded like consultant speak. But here's what it actually meant. When I finally got my arms wrapped around it in my second MSP and then in my third MSP where I actually started that way, I stopped opening sales calls with tell me about your IT environment. And I I started opening with, tell me about your business and what are you trying to grow? What's slowing you down? And that one change is not just a script change, because what you're looking at is, okay, I'm going to implement this technology. What does it do down the road? What does it actually do? If I do this, how does it impact that? And then you're selling to that, you're now selling to this. That's all it is. And so it flipped my sales conversation. Suddenly I wasn't a vendor. I was a partner trying to understand, how do they become better architects? How do they become better ophthalmologists? And then the price conversation goes away, because you're talking about their business and how do you help them deliver better? It wasn't because I lowered price. I didn't lower price. I increased price. I doubled, triple price in some cases. It's because they stopped comparing me to commodities, to MSPs. And they were like, oh, this guy's here to help me grow my
And
business.
this is the part that surprises most MSP owners when we start to talk to them. The pricing power doesn't come from charging more for the same thing. It comes from selling something different. When you're the only one in the room talking about their revenue, their margin, their growth, their competitive situation, where they're going to be next year, there's no comparison. You're all by yourself. There's no per seat quote to benchmark you against, because you've made yourself uncomparable.
And why this works specifically for MSPs and not, say, a general business consultant, is that you actually run their technology. You actually do it. You're the one putting in the actual solution. So you see what's slowing them down. You have the metrics. You have the dashboards. You have the everything. You see where the bottlenecks are.
And there's a second reason why MSPs are uniquely positioned for this shift, and that's you already have the relationship. You're in the environment. You have the recurring revenue contract. And so the cost of expanding a BSP relationship with existing clients is dramatically lower than some consultants walking in cold. You don't have to win the relationship. They already like you. They already want to work with you. You just have to upgrade it.
So you have to think of it this way. The MSP runs a workshop. Every job is custom. Every problem is one-off. The best craft person in the building is the owner. And growth is capped by how many hours that craftsperson can work. The BSP, on the other hand, they run a factory. Repeatable process, documented outcomes, predictable quality, scalable, and by adding the right machinery. Not by working the owner harder. And that's the workshop to factory shift. That's the focus shift that we were talking about. And it's not just about operations. It's about what you're selling. The workshop sells hours. The factory sells outcomes.
MSP owners are already making the move, not waiting for permission from vendors. They're not waiting for the industry to come around while they're quietly rebranding, they're repositioning and repricing. They're talking to their clients differently. And as a result, they're pulling away from the pack while everybody else is fighting for these same dollar per seat clients. The ones who make the shift in the next 2 to 3 years are going to look very different than the ones who don't. And we've seen so much talk about that. The next couple of years is transformative. And the gap is going to widen, because once you're selling business outcomes, pricing power, client relationship, the team you can attract, all of it compounds. You're not on the same curve as the commodity MSPs anymore. So let's get specific, Joe. What does it actually take to stop being an MSP and start being a BSP? There are 5 shifts, Joe, 5. And we organized them into a framework that we called SCALE, or GALE.
You don't do these all at once. One of the other maladies that we have as MSPs, we want to do everything at the same time. You do them in order. I tried to do them out of order in MSP number 2, and it didn't work.
At the beginning with S. S is set the foundation. This is where you define whom you serve and what you sell. And it sounds basic. It's not basic. It's hard. This is actually hard work, Joe. I mean, to say these things is easy, but to actually do them, it is hard work. It takes a bit of thinking, but you can do it. It's not a problem. It's the thing that MSP owners skip, because it's the thing that every entrepreneur owner brain fights the hardest against. The instinct is to keep the door open to anyone who will pay. I don't want to turn business away, but that instinct is exactly what keeps you as a channel. If you serve everyone, you serve no one. You can't position, you can't price. You are just that ditch that water flows through. And defining your target and product is the foundation of every single scalable business, not just MSPs, every business, everywhere. It's the difference between scaling and not scaling. Even though your brain is going to fight you on it, every owner I've worked with has resisted this step. I resisted this step because narrowing feels like risk. It feels like turning down revenue. But in fact, the opposite is true. Narrowing is what lets you charge more, attract better clients, and stop being a channel for vendor products.
In my third MSP, when I set the foundation, the first thing I did was narrow my market to a single vertical. Same technology I've been delivering, completely different conversation. I could walk into a prospect meeting and open with a specific business problem they were dealing with right now in their language, the way they talked about it. And every prospect would nod. I didn't have to explain.
No, and when they don't nod, they're not your customer. It's cool if they don't nod. It's not a problem because that just means that they're not your customer and you can move on.
That's right. The other piece of set the foundation is pricing and the sales process. Pricing is based on value, not cost. So in my third MSP, I focus on ophthalmologists. And what I did is, hey, I bet you that your patient flow is a little bit clunky or a little bit lumpy. I would walk in and say something like that. And they go, yeah. Well, how would you feel if you could see 5 more patients a week? At that point, I could have stopped talking because the value that I was going to offer by giving them 5 more patients a week outweighed anything else that I was going to talk about technology or anything else. It was just like, I'm gonna get 20 more patients a month.
Yeah.
When do you start?
Set the foundation is really what ties it together. You got your market, your product, your price,
Yeah.
sales. You get those right, and you're not selling a commodity. So then you move on to constructing the factory. This is where that workshop versus factory metaphor really matters. The workshop is random. It's one person or a few people doing everything. The owner is the master craftsman. Every job is a little custom. Every client is a little bit different, and the quality of the output really depends on who's running the bench. Workshops are limited in scale by definition. A factory is the opposite. A factory exists independent of its creator. The processes are documented, the rules are defined, the output is consistent regardless of who's running the line. And critically, a factory can be ramped up or ramped down. You can add capacity, you can step away, you can sell it. A factory is durable in a way the workshop can never be.
And the factory isn't sold. The factory is what lets you actually serve clients well, really well at scale. The workshop sounds romantic. You're like, I'm boutique. And it's so romantic until you're the one at midnight on a Tuesday eating cold takeout, standing in the closet, crying because nobody else knows how to do a thing.
Yeah.
So the romance wears off fast, man.
So constructing the factory is really about putting the vision, mission, and tools in vision, mission, and values in place, defining your stack, putting your legal documents in place, all of these things in place to define how your business operates, whether you're there or whether you're not there. So it gives this company, this business, an identity that's separate from you, the owner. People need something to relate to that isn't you personally. They need a story they can repeat to the colleague. They need a reason to refer to you as something bigger than, I know that guy.
The legal scaffolding, the boring part nobody wants to do, master service agreements, statement of work, acceptable use, termination clauses, now all the AI policy, and that's actually to protect you. Most MSPs have contracts that they've downloaded from the internet 5 years ago and they never update it. And the factory needs real legal scaffolding to be durable.
Right, so that brings us to A, accelerate success. Now you have a foundation, you know how it works, you've built the factory, and now you can turn on the fuel. So acceleration means you take what's working and you build on it. The sales conversation that works becomes a defined sales process. The marketing tactic that pulls in good leads becomes a marketing program. You stop running on instinct and you start building that system. And most MSPs never get to a defined sales process. They have a charismatic owner who closes sales. We've talked about this. And that work you try to scale, right? It works until you try to bring someone in. Acceleration is the moment where you say, what does the close look like when I'm not in the room? You write it down, you teach it, and you measure the results.
And the same thing with marketing, right? Marketing is just getting that sales conversation down, then automating it. Most MSPs have what I'd call accidental marketing. Some referrals, a website, maybe a newsletter that goes out when someone remembers that they have to do it. Acceleration is when marketing becomes a program. Top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, all of it producing a known calculable result, a real cadence. And the other piece of acceleration is staying connected to your clients in a structured way. That's what we call strategic business reviews. That's what strategic business reviews do. Is they're not QBRs or TBRs. They're SBRs. They're strategic business reviews. An SBR is a business conversation. You sit down with the client. You talk about what they're trying to accomplish this year. You bring observations. You make recommendations. Some of those recommendations, they turn into projects. Some of them turn into expanded contracts. All of them deepen the relationship and refine the offering, because every SBR teaches you something about what your customer actually needs.
So L, next one is to lock in the systems. This is where your business gets more profitable, often, quietly. So here what you're doing is you're pulling out cost, you're pulling out time, you're pulling out effort, but you can keep your price the same. In fact, a lot of times you can increase your price because you are delivering a better outcome. And most MSPs are doing neither. They're reducing their costs and they're not increasing their prices because they're afraid, because they're worried their clients are going to leave. And the costs creep up because the work is under-standardized. So lock-in systems flips both of those curves at one time. It is a beautiful thing.
I'll give you a perfect example. And this comes from George at BizTech Pro, one of our coaching clients. And George standardized his deliveries so hard that he reduced the effort to serve his typical account by 90%, not 19, 90. Same scope of service, same client outcome, just standardized, documented, repeatable. And then critically, he kept billing the same exact rate. He didn't pass on the same, and he produced better results for his clients.
Standardization is not about cutting corners. It's about delivering the same outcome with less efforts. So the margins show up in your business, in your pocket, instead of leaking out.
And here's the thing, the clients are happier. Standardization means consistency, and they're happy when you know what you're going to get, no matter where you go. If it's going to be consistent, you're always happy.
So, which brings us to the last bit, E, expand with intent. And this is the forward-looking phase. By the time you get here, your foundation is set, your factory's running, your accelerated engine is producing, your systems are locked in, and now the job changes, and your job becomes management without getting involved in all of the details.
Which is the hardest skill for a former technician to learn, by the way. Stepping back, letting the team run the work, looking at the numbers and the trends instead of tickets.
And so by the time you've moved through all 5 of these, you're not an MSP anymore. You haven't quit being technical. You're still a technology company. But what you sell, whom you serve, how you price, how you operate, how you grow, all of it's different. You're a business solutions partner. You've evolved with the market. So here's what we want you to take away. The BSP model was a necessary evolution. It worked. It built billions of dollars of value, but evolution doesn't stop. And the market is asking the industry for the next chapter. Every tactical problem you're fighting, pricing pressure, sales struggles, hiring chaos, the inability to step away, the per seat race to the bottom, all of it traces back to the model. Fixing them one at a time is a losing game. Fix the model. And if you're thinking, okay, cool, where do I start, right? That's the right question. Because the worst thing you can do is try to bolt on all 5 of the scale phases at once. It's like you said, it has to be in sequence. You have to start with your business where it actually is, which is why we built the scale assessment. It takes under 5 minutes. It shows you exactly where you stand across all 5 scale scores. You can come back and you can take it in the future and see how you've progressed. You can see what you've done, what you're half done, and where you need to grow. It's free. There's no pitch. There's no sales call unless you want one. We do ask you if you want a sales call. Right.
We do ask you if you want a sales call, but the assessment itself is free, and
But the assessment is free, and you can get tons of stuff for free, right? We'll sell you some stuff too, but you get tons of stuff for free. So I recommend go take a look at it. Think about where you are on that trajectory, because that is what is going to give you that transformation. It's what is going to give you that next step.
Okay, and if this episode shifted how you see the industry, share it with another MSP owner. They're fighting the same fight that you are, so share it with them.
And subscribe, and we'll be back next Tuesday.
See you then.